2 years ago, I was stuck in the worst version of myself. I'd wake up with no energy, scroll through my phone for an hour, barely get through work, come home exhausted, order takeout, watch Netflix until midnight, then repeat. I felt like I was sleepwalking through my own life. But then I discovered something that completely changed everything. And it wasn't some massive transformation or life-changing event. It was getting 1% better every single day. Here's something that blew my mind. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you don't just improve by 365%. You improve by 3,700%. That's the power of compound growth, but applied to your life instead of your bank account. But here's what nobody tells you about the 1% rule. It's not about the math. It's about identity. Every small action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you make your bed, you're voting for someone who has their life together. When you read one page, you're voting for someone who values learning. When you do 10 push-ups, you're voting for someone who takes care of their body. The question isn't whether you can change your life dramatically overnight. You can't. The question is, what kind of person are you voting for with your daily actions? Let me paint you a picture of my old mornings. Alarm goes off. Hit snooze 3 times. Finally, drag myself out of bed feeling like garbage. Immediately grab my phone and fall into the social media black hole for 30 to 60 minutes. Rush to get ready. Skip breakfast or grab something terrible. Show up to work already feeling behind and stressed. By 9 a.m., I'd already voted for someone who procrastinates, someone who prioritizes other people's content over their own life, someone who doesn't take care of their health, and someone who's always reacting instead of being proactive. That version of me wasn't evil or lazy. He was just stuck in a pattern that kept voting for the wrong identity. Every morning was like democracy in action, except I kept electing the worst possible candidate to run my life. So I decided to flip the script, but here's the key. I started ridiculously small. Instead of trying to wake up at 5 a.m. and meditate for an hour, I started with getting 1% better in 4 simple areas. First, I moved my phone charger out of my bedroom. That's it. Couldn't check social media immediately because my phone wasn't there. This created a tiny pocket of silence where I could actually hear my own thoughts instead of everyone else's. Second, I put a glass of water by my bed the night before. When I woke up, instead of reaching for my phone, I'd drink the water. Boom. I'm now someone who hydrates their body first thing in the morning instead of dehydrating their attention. These changes took 0 willpower and about 30 seconds each, but they completely changed the trajectory of my morning. After a week of this, something weird started happening. Because I wasn't immediately diving into my phone, I started noticing how I actually felt when I woke up. Because I was drinking water first, I started wanting to make better choices throughout the morning. Small wins create momentum for bigger wins. It's like your brain starts thinking, oh, we're the type of person who makes good choices now? Cool, let's make more good choices. I added a third micro habit. I started making my bed every morning. Not because making your bed changes the world, but because it's the first victory of the day. Before I even had breakfast, I'd already completed something. I'd already voted for someone who finishes what they start. 3 tiny changes, maybe 2 minutes total, but they completely rewired my morning identity from someone who's reactive and chaotic to someone who's intentional and calm. The mornings were working, so I applied the same 1% principle to my evenings. Instead of falling into the Netflix black hole until midnight, I created what I call my shutdown ritual. First, micro change. I set a phone alarm for 9 p.m. labeled digital sunset. When it goes off, all screens go off. Not forever, just for the last hour of my day. This created space for my brain to actually wind down instead of getting pumped up by whatever drama was happening on the internet. Second micro change. I laid out my clothes for the next day. Takes 30 seconds, but it means tomorrow morning I'm voting for someone who's prepared instead of someone who's scrambling. Third micro change. I wrote down 3 things that went well that day. Not a gratitude journal with fancy prompts. Just 3 good things. This trained my brain to end each day looking for what went right instead of obsessing over what went wrong. After about a month of these tiny changes, bigger changes started happening automatically. Because I wasn't scrolling my phone first thing in the morning, I started having more mental energy. Because I was making my bed, I started wanting to keep my whole room clean. I wasn't forcing these changes. They just started feeling natural. It's like my identity had shifted from someone who wings it to someone who prepares. From someone who reacts to someone who responds. From someone who hopes things work out to someone who makes things work out. The 1% improvements were compounding. Each good choice made the next good choice easier. The morning and evening routines were transforming my personal life, but work was still chaos. So I applied the 1% rule there too, starting with the smallest possible changes. Micro change 1. I started each workday by writing down my 3 most important tasks. Not a massive to-do list with 47 items. Just 3 things that would make the day a success. This took 2 minutes, but completely changed my focus from being busy to being effective. Micro change 2. I batched all my email checking into 3 specific times. 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. This freed up hours of mental energy that I didn't even realize I was losing. Micro change 3. I took a 5-minute walk between major tasks. Not a 30-minute workout, just 5 minutes of moving my body and clearing my head. This simple reset made me more creative and less stressed throughout the entire day. Here's something unexpected that happened. Getting 1% better in my personal routines made me 1% better in my relationships too. Because I was more organized and less stressed, I had more patience with people. Because I was sleeping better, I was more fun to be around. Because I was taking better care of myself, I had more energy to invest in others. I started applying the 1% rule to my relationships. Instead of trying to have deep, meaningful conversations every day, I just started asking one genuine question when talking to people. Instead of trying to be the world's best friend, I just started sending one thoughtful text per week to people I cared about. Small, consistent investments in relationships compound just like everything else. The people in my life started responding differently because I was showing up differently, 1% at a time. Let me be real with you, this wasn't a perfect upward trajectory. Some days I'd sleep through my alarm. Some nights I'd fall back into the Netflix trap. Some workdays I'd get completely derailed by other people's emergencies. But here's what the 1% rule taught me. Progress isn't about perfection. It's about getting back on track faster. Instead of thinking, I messed up, might as well start over on Monday, I learned to think, I missed today, let me get back to it tomorrow. The goal isn't to never fail, it's to fail better, to have shorter setbacks and quicker comebacks, to treat missed days as data, not drama. Bad days don't erase good days unless you let them. One terrible meal doesn't make you unhealthy. One lazy morning doesn't make you undisciplined. One unproductive day doesn't make you a failure. But the story you tell yourself about these bad days, that can change everything. After 6 months of these micro improvements, I looked back and couldn't believe how different my life looked. Not because of any single dramatic change, but because of hundreds of tiny improvements that had multiplied into something incredible. My mornings went from chaotic rushes to peaceful rituals. My workdays went from scattered stress to focused productivity. My evenings went from mindless consumption to intentional restoration. My relationships went from surface-level interactions to meaningful connections. But the biggest change wasn't external, it was internal. I'd gone from seeing myself as someone who struggled with discipline to someone who was naturally organized. From someone who was always behind to someone who was prepared. From someone who hoped for the best to someone who created the best. So, where do you start? Pick one area of your life that feels stuck and identify the smallest possible improvement you could make. Not the biggest, most impressive change. The smallest, most sustainable one. If you want to exercise more, don't commit to an hour at the gym. Commit to putting on your workout clothes if you want to read more. Don't commit to a book per week. Commit to reading one page. If you want to eat healthier, don't overhaul your entire diet. Commit to drinking 1 glass of water before each meal. Start so small that it feels almost silly not to do it. That's how you know you've found your 1%. Here's my promise to you. If you get 1% better every day for the next 90 days, you won't recognize your life. The person you are today is the result of all the 1% choices you've made up until now. The person you'll be in a year is the result of all the 1% choices you make starting today. Which version of yourself are you going to vote for? The choice is yours and you get to make it fresh every single day. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what's your 1% starting point? What's one ridiculously small improvement you're going to make tomorrow morning? And if this video helped you see your life differently, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe if you want more content about building the life you actually want, one small choice at a time. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be 1% better, and that starts right now.